Get busy living or get busy dying.
Hello, and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And today, we're doing another episode of
The Works Of.
But today, we're looking at... We've been looking at some of our favorite directors, but now you have to look at one of the guys that just steps up to the plate, and he might not be a favorite, but he's definitely one of those guys that steps to the plate and knocks it out of the park pretty much every time.
He's one of those directors where you're like, who? Sometimes?
Yeah.
But then you actually like see their body of work and you're like, oh shit.
You're like, oh, I did not realize that this man was the same. We're talking about Frank Darabont.
Yes.
The man, the legend. Frank Darabont, he's everyone knows the name just because it just seems so crazy. He's got a very small director's filmography.
Yes, as far as just strictly directorial, only a handful.
Yeah, not that many. So we'll be going over today The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, The Majestic, and The Mist. And we'll talk a little bit about the TV stuff, but those are the main ones here. And I think that these four films are so damn strong that you have to put this man in the top directors of all time.
Yeah, and it's weird that like he hasn't directed a movie in so long.
Yeah, and that, I mean that's basically what this episode is about. Is basically if we somehow reach Frank Darabont's ears, we're just saying please work,
please
again.
direct movies again,
please direct movies again, because. As I said, right there, you heard one of the names. The first one on this list is The Shawshank Redemption. The man, directed some TV movies and some shorts beforehand.
He also co-wrote Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yeah. Which you're just like, what?
I mean, I love Nightmare on Elm Street 3, but it's just like, oh, all right.
It's funny because the man has a history with Stephen King in a way. In that aspect, is that he
has 3 adaptations under his belt.
Yeah,
based on his work,
and that's not even including his first short was that he directed was The Woman in the Room, which was a Stephen King short, and then he also which was part of the Night Shift collection, which was a video thing, which you don't need to see. This doesn't count.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. But it's something you need to know that, like, the man has horror roots, you know, and there's a reason why he was given these Stephen King, stories. Properties. Because if you've ever read... The Shawshank Redemption is not Stephen King, but
yes, it is.
No, it is.
Yeah, it's a novella.
Shit. Oh my goodness, I blanked for a second there. Like, I mean, it's some of Stephen King's best. I think when we have to talk about Frank Darabont, we have to talk about Stephen King.
Yeah.
So this is like a slight Stephen King episode.
This is but a drop in the bucket compared to like the rest of Stephen King's work. We could never do a works of Stephen King.
God. No, we could not. It would be endless.
As we speak right now, he's published 2 books.
As we took the words to say it.
2 more have already released.
It's true, though. He's got a book coming out this year already. You know, like, the man is a machine.
Oh, he's ridiculous.
He's ridiculous.
He says his regimen is that, like, he wakes up, he has his tea, and he treats it like a 9 to 5. And he's just like, my goal is to get those 6,000 words in.
Oh, my God.
And me, as a writer myself, I'm lucky if I get like 2,000 words in a day. That's a good day, let alone 6,000.
6,000. You're like, holy shit, man. Like, it's wild. He's wild. And with these first 2 movies on Frank Darabont's director's list, you have Stephen King's, some of his best. I mean, it is up there as one of his best. What are some? I love Stephen King. I read a lot of Stephen King growing up. Salem's Lot is my personal favorite.
Favorite Stephen King story?
Yeah. What would you pick for your favorite Stephen King story? Because I picked Salem's Lot. I love Salem's Lot. It's a good vampire story. It breaks some of the rules, but also makes some. It's nice.
It's tough because he's written so much.
So much.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Because even stuff that I really, really like, I have to admit, is like super messy
Yeah.
and very convoluted. Like it is
Yeah.
a brick. It's a great
It's a
book,
brick.
but it's an encyclopedia. It's just a phone book. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It took so long for me to get
I
through
don't know.
that book.
I just like a lot. Carrie, Christine,
Yeah.
Cujo. I'm thinking of the seas.
I love Carrie. Carrie the book. I do love the movies. Well, that's not true. The movie. I don't like the remake so much. But I love the book more because it's told from like a police report, sort of. You know,
Yeah.
like it's sort of like
In the same way that like Dracula is told through like journal entries.
Yeah, exactly. Which I love that, you know, like that's that way of storytelling, you know. It's such a cool way.
Because it has like this eerie sort of mythical like urban like legendness to it when it's just done through like journal entries. So it's not even like detailed accounts. It's just
Yeah.
like what people have seen.
what they witnessed.
How they could begin to describe what happened.
But I personally have read The Green Mile. Have you?
No, I'm not.
Really? It's a very short read. I would say go home and fucking
Yeah,
read it
I know
because
that.
it's very
I know
short.
that it and Shawshank are both novellas, so they're like super short.
They're very short, and so is you're saying the Green. You said it, but you mean The Green Mile and
no,
Shawshank.
I mean, Shawshank. It as in
Yes,
what we just talked
as
about.
what we just talked
we
about.
can't say
I was
it.
like, wait a minute, you can't say it when you're describing these lists.
We can't
gets
use
confusing.
we can't use that pronoun.
Can't use it when we're discussing Stephen King.
No.
Can't use it. But I've read The Green Mile, and I want to say I read The Shawshank Redemption, but it's been since I was a kid.
I think the novella was called Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. Like I think that was the full title.
Yeah. So it's been years, but I remember reading The Green Mile because the movie touches me, but the book is able to get into like his thought process more, like any good book can. You know, like that's the reason why some people prefer books more. Is that sometimes it's nice to get into the head of a character.
There's a sense
than
of
just
like
seeing it.
detail and intimacy that you can only get through prose as opposed to a visual medium like film.
Exactly. So Shawshank. Let's before we jump into the Green Mile, though. The Shawshank Redemption, 1994, literally on the top list of top 250 movies of all time. It is on IMDb, and it's number one on the list. Like this man literally steps up to the plate for the first time on his first serious movie directing and fucking makes the best movie on IMDb's top 100 list. Do you know how hard it is to get up on that list? You know how many people you have to have vote 9 or above for you to get to the top of that list?
Yeah,
like,
and then
statistically, it's a lot of fucking
and then
people.
another discussion in and of itself, which I'm sure we get to as we talk about the other movies, is that oftentimes you can have filmmakers like that who like debut with a really strong contender,
Really strong.
but then they peak
Yeah.
and then they peter out.
I wouldn't say that here because
Definitely not here, no.
because Green Mile and the Majestic are fantastic. They are they can stand next to the Shawshank Redemption and still compete.
Yes.
I feel like those three movies can compete together, and it's kind of amazing.
But you know what I mean with like like first time directors with like a
Yeah.
major hit. Sometimes you get that like sophomore slump.
Yeah, it can happen. And you hate to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You hate to see it. But that's the thing about Darabont here is he does not. He doesn't miss. But
So how would you put like
other than the miss?
I'm trying to think of like
maybe,
other
but,
prison movies.
for Shawshank Redemption. Oh,
Yeah, just comparing it to like other films of its sub genre, I guess.
Subgenre. I think that Shawshank is a very hopeful story. That's,
I think that tends to separate it. There tends to be a sense of like optimism with other movies of its kind, but it tends to be a little bleaker.
Yeah.
Despite how dark Shawshank does get at times, there's a warmth about it.
Yeah. It's like
It's almost like a Spielbergian warmth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had told me Steven Spielberg directed Shawshank,
It would fit. It would track.
Yeah, I would track it. I wouldn't say, of course, because I think Darabont his like visual style is very different than Spielberg. If Spielberg's about those big wide shots and those big reveals, Darabont's about moving the camera to the reveal. You know, like Spielberg is like wide, you see everything, and Darabont will usually move you towards the reveal and then reveal it to you, as in the final shot of the movie when it's going over the grass and then you finally find the box, or you're talking about the Green Mile where you constantly are moving down the Green Mile with the camera and then it turns into the it's like Darabont's. And he pretty much sticks to that style for the Majestic too, kind of these big sweeping shots. And then the Mist is where he goes off stylistically.
Yeah, that's where it like differentiates a bit. Visually. But I do want to stick to Shawshank for a bit.
Yeah, of
because
course. I'm
Shawshank could
comparing the four the visually. It's interesting because Shawshank as his first big swing is also his most visually impressive.
Yes. Yeah, I would argue that.
Yeah. It's like as cool as the Majestic.
I would feel like the only big contender would be like the Green Mile. I think it's between those two if we're talking strictly visuals.
Exactly. Except the Shawshank Redemption doesn't have to rely on any CGI. So that's why I think it beats out the Green Mile, because the Green Mile can sometimes look dated. You know, like when he opens his mouth and the bugs come out.
I was about to say that, but that is also a case of like the Green Mile being a more fantastical story to begin with.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Shawshank might be why it's a more popular movie / book even, because it's Stephen King sticking strictly to the real world, which he doesn't often do. I've read a lot of his books.
He's a writer with range, but he knows what like his particular audience and demographic likes.
It's fantasy and horror. Right? You know, that's what they're there for, and that's what he gives them. But Shawshank is a very realistic, you know, if not hopeful, an optimistic story.
Tell about the thing that Morgan Freeman was in a bunch of movies before that. But talk about the thing that like made the Morgan Freeman needs to narrate everything.
Everything. Because it became sort of like a meme, and then it became an actual meme. When memes came around, they were like, all right, now he's narrating everything. You know, like I think that the great thing about Shawshank, and the reason why it's at the top of the IMDb top 100 list, top 250 list, is that not only does Frank Darabont fucking kill it on directing, and the screenplay's great, and the original story's great, and the premise is great, but also, you brought up Morgan Freeman, but also
Tim Robbins.
They both are acting their asses off. Like,
there's just like something really lovable about not only them, but just like the cast in general. Like, I always remember William Sadler as like one of the other prisoners.
Yep. Clancy Brown. Hey, one of our favorites. Mr. Krabs himself.
He has one of the greatest insults in like movie history.
Yeah, what's he say? I forget.
It's when he what's the main character's name? I don't want to say like Tim Robbins.
Andy Dufresne.
Andy Dufresne. When Andy suggests that like he helps him with his taxes.
Yeah.
To like get him like the good return, to like give the bounty that he got from his like dead relative to his wife. He's like, "Oh, do you trust your wife?" He's like, "Oh, that's funny. You know, you're gonna look funny. You're sucking my dick with no teeth." And you're like, Jesus. That's a top fiver though for like insults. Clancy Brown is so fucking good at that.
So fucking good at that. You also have Paul McCrane. I love Paul McCrane as Guard Trout. I think he's always good.
What's the actor who plays the warden?
Shit, what's his name?
Because he's also in fucking Daredevil as Owsley, and I remember when he was cast as Owsley, I'm like, perfect.
Perfect. I forget his name. I don't know why. I can't remember the warden's name at all. Bob Gunton.
He's such a perfect prick.
Oh my god, he's so good. He's always good. He's good in everything. Yeah, Daredevil.
I love, despite how it's a very breezy film because it's not short.
No.
But it uses its time well, and it really breezes through like decades. You always forget when you watch it, especially since the only makeup they really do is like Tim Robbins' hair gets like a little gray in the temples. But like he's there.
It moves through time.
Yeah, he's there for like what, 10 years I think before he gets out.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's supposed to be a bit of a time, you know, like, and I think that's extremely well paced movie. Screenplay wise, you were saying it. The dialogue is fantastic. Not only is it snappy and well written, but also, you know, at times can ask good questions. You know, like,
yeah, just the idea of just like what's even in the title is the word redemption.
Yeah,
the idea that, well, maybe Andy was innocent, like all along. Like Morgan Freeman's character, not so much. Like he did do terrible things that got him in there, but being in prison for decades, like since he was a young man, it's just one of those things where like it changes you as a person.
Exactly.
And you can tell that as a person, he has like sort of come to peace with what he did, and he wouldn't do anything like that again.
Exactly, and that's
it's
redemption of itself.
Yeah, it's the sort of like hopeful optimism which we tend not to have anymore. Of just like you can be better.
Yeah. And I mean, this Shawshank, I feel like there's everybody takes reference from it, you know, and you can feel it. Like all of Orange is the New Black is just like trying to touch Shawshank in some way, you know.
Man.
Like I love Orange is the New Black.
You
I really
didn't finish
do.
it.
I didn't finish it.
Yet another thing you got me into, and then proceeded not to finish.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, the final season was not fucking around.
No. The optimism goes away.
The final season touches on ice.
Oh.
And it's like, it does not pull its punches.
Oh, shit.
The final season could have just, like, taken a knee and just be like, okay, we're just going to coast through this to wrap this up. But no, they were like, no, we're going to talk about some shit.
They're like, hey, we got some
it's
stuff to
rough.
say. Yeah,
it's
Jesus.
great.
But I think it's actually Tim Robbins, like, steals your heart in this. I think
it is surprising that, like, where's he been?
Right?
Where's he been?
Just like, you're like, what you been up to? Because like,
between this and Jacob's Ladder alone,
Jacob's Ladder, but also Mystic River.
Yeah,
like, you know, like I think he does such a good job in Mystic River because he's playing such a fucking like despicable character that you're. It's just amazing that you have to be like, oh shit, you know, like, oh, he's in that Castle Rock show. I need to fucking watch that finally.
Yeah.
I forgot Tim Robbins was in that.
That's a whole like. Sort of like Stephen King amalgamation type show, isn't it?
I heard that.
It's like a mix of a lot of stories, I think.
It kind of sounds like it's in the universe of like the Dark Tower, where it was just like, it all touches now.
Yeah.
Like, and you're just
which
like,
the Dark Tower finally ended.
Yeah. Which you're just like, wow.
Now maybe I'll finally read it then.
Yeah, right.
Because that's the thing. It's always such like, it always feels like such a burden when it's such a long ongoing series. And the problem is if it takes too long between installments, then I forget shit, so you have to reread it.
Yeah. And you're just like, no.
I'll just wait till it's done.
I hear the movie's just fucking terrible. The one that they
It didn't look good to begin with.
McConaughey.
I had no nothing
visually cool.
I know nothing about the Dark Tower, but watching the trailer, I'm like, that does not look like Stephen King's type of work.
Right. You're just like,
It looks like you're just trying to turn it into a generic action movie.
Yeah, looks like they're trying to make Marvel movie. But
yeah.
It's one of those properties that you're like, some company is going to make Dark Tower work, and it's going to make boatloads of money, you know, like same thing with the Dresden Files. Like you were saying, you're reading the Dresden Files.
Yeah, I'm on book 3 right now.
It's like some company, Netflix, somebody, HBO Max, somebody's going to step in and do it.
They'll do it because they did do it before, but it didn't work
Wheel
out.
Of Time. It's like somebody.
Wheel of Time is coming.
And if they do it right, that's a huge franchise.
Because I know
that's the next fucking thing.
Dresden tried. Like back in the day, there was a BBC show that only lasted like a season.
I heard.
Yeah.
And you're not my only friend reading the Dresden Files right now. That's what cracks me up is that people like it. You know, like it's a wild thing. But yeah, we're just getting caught up in the
tangents.
In the tangents. But Shawshank, if you haven't seen it and you're listening to this podcast, go watch it.
Yes, and this is coming from someone who I think I saw Shawshank last.
Yeah.
In his filmography, because I didn't see it.
Really?
I didn't see it for a long time.
Really?
I don't know why. It's not like I was purposely avoiding it.
So, and we'll definitely do this as something someday. But when I was a kid, I printed off the IMDb 250 lists, and I just started plowing through them.
Yeah, I had like the AFI,
exactly.
where it was like the best of each genre.
Exactly. And we'll have to one day do that as a podcast or something, just kind of like go through them all. But I did that, and how can you look at that list and see Shawshank just looking you in the fucking face and not want?
Well, it's just one of those things where, like,
my problem. It was like intimidating me, you know. Like it was just like, you haven't seen the number one on this list, you fucking idiot. Better watch it now. You.
I think it's just one of those things where,
like 14,
yeah, it's just like
nope.
it's like any great movie where you're just like, oh, I haven't seen that, but I'll get to it. I swear I get to it, and then you just don't.
Yeah, I know. There's
and then once I did, I realized I had
me.
seen all of Darabont's other stuff before it. I had seen Green Mile. I had seen The Majestic.
Really?
I had seen The Mist. I'm like,
You're like, oh shit.
I saw this one last.
You're like, oops. I do love The Shawshank Redemption. I am not all the time going back to rewatch it. The other movies on the top 100 list, the top 10, I might go back to rewatch faster than this one.
I think I've watched The Green Mile a lot more.
Yes,
than Shawshank.
I've seen The Green Mile more, and The Mist is actually the one I've seen the most on this list. I will actually, you would be surprised, I have the most to say about The Mist on this list of movies.
That does surprise me.
I have a lot to say about The Mist. But moving on to The Green Mile. Now, I as I was saying before, I love this book.
Yeah, and there are definitely parallels with this because they're both effectively prison movies, even if it's technically death row still. But
it's funny because The Shawshank Redemption, you don't feel much supernatural or even like, you know, Stephen King contemplating God type of things. Yeah. And that's what happens here. That's what The Green Mile is kind of Tom Hanks's character is Stephen King, you know, all going up to God and being like, "Show me things," you know, like, and you know, there's some weird thing going on here with God actually showing him things.
Yeah,
in this movie, you know,
it's definitely an interesting one.
It's
one that I love. It's one I love introducing to people because, like, I don't think I haven't shown The Green Mile to a single person who didn't end up crying at the end.
Yeah.
And I'm a sadistic son of a bitch. So it's just like, that's right.
That's right.
Cry.
That's right. Yeah, if there's any movie that hits you in the feels, it's this movie. I cried while reading the book. I definitely cried the first time I watched the movie. It's hits you right with the feels.
Dude, you want to talk about, like, never underestimating an actor, even if they're constantly typecast. Yeah. Michael Clark Duncan, pre-Green Mile, was just the big, tough, brutish guy.
Yep. And then they put him here, and he's able to fucking act his goddamn ass off.
Yeah.
Like, fucking Oscar-worthy shit, you know? Like, it's just so good. And they forever should not underestimate him, you know? Because...
Well, I mean, he passed away a few years ago, so...
Did he really?
He did, yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great.
That's why they had to replace his role in Sin City 2 when that came out, remember?
Fuck, I forgot about that. That was so sad. Shit. Sin City 2 is a whole podcast. Not in a good way.
Sin City, to me, the second one is just like... You missed your shot.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You
like,
missed the boat on that one. Too
too
little, too late.
You missed the boat. It's like the first one, you're like, gold. The second one, you're like, ooh. So important to say here, Green Mile is number 29 on the IMDb list. So it's a little bit further down, but
I'll just use that as an excuse. I was working through it, Frank. I was still in the 30s. It took me a while to get up to number 1. I was working on it.
And I think it strictly comes down to that this one's supernatural in a way.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not as universally as accepted as like Shawshank, which
it's
is
definitely a turn.
redemption.
I like making people watch the film not when they don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I like it when it takes that turn if they're like, okay.
It definitely I know I took it away from myself reading the book, but you know, it's a surprising story. It's one like that's kind of
like it's a shift. It's a big shift.
Yeah, it's a shift, especially if you were gonna like try to marathon these movies in a row. You'd be like, what the fuck out of Shawshank, you'd be like,
And
what?
I always appreciate when movies take turns like that, and I feel
Yeah.
like we don't, because it's hard to pull off well.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it when it's done. Like, I like it when films kind of pull the rug from under you. You think of like The Green Mile or From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, because it's like that's the thing is, so this is one of those big twist movies. Of course, spoilers, but also you should have seen fucking Green Mile.
I mean, we've already been talking about supernatural elements. That's the big
1999.
turn.
This is 1999. You should have seen Green Mile by now, but if you haven't, go watch Green Mile. It's a movie where you start off and you're like a straight crime death row movie.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what you're kind of like, oh no, this guy may have done
and
something.
like Tom Hanks' character is like a guard there. He's like the boss.
Yeah, and then there's this one prisoner that they refer to as John Coffey, and
Like the drink, but not spelled the same. Always remember that.
I love that. See more great lines. It's like, and you gotta. It's like, you know, it's Stephen King and also the movie. You know, the writers of the movie like making
This
it work.
film,
Like,
well, I would argue is sadder just because it doesn't have like as optimistic as like a progression or an ending. I do enjoy the sense of like camaraderie and humility and like kindness that like the guards have, except when you get like the one asshole.
Yep.
Like the fact that these are death row inmates, and we don't get into too much detail as to what they've done, but you know they've done terrible things.
Yeah.
And yet the guards like pay them the respect, and they're just like, look, they're on death row, they've paid their due.
yeah, exactly. And it's like it's a heavy topic. You know, like it's like how do you treat these men who are already about to get the ultimate punishment? You know, like it's like there's nothing more you can do to these men. They're about to be put to the ultimate end of justice.
But then you have like the two wild
justice.
cards, because you have like the one asshole guard, but then you get Sam Rockwell's prisoner character who comes in.
Wild Bill.
I fucking love Sam Rockwell so much.
I love Sam
I think
Rockwell.
like
he's so good.
I think the first
He's been
time
doing so good
the
since-
first time I ever saw him or like really noticed him in something was Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
And then I proceeded to like love him in anything he was in.
He's so good in Galaxy Quest too. My favorite non-Trek film. That's a Trek film.
We should talk about that. That should have been a topic.
And I think Green Mile is another one where the cast is just outstanding. You know, like first off, Tom Hanks, America's Uncle.
Oh, yeah.
You love him. You know, you got. We were saying Sam Rockwell is Wild Bill. David Morse is Brutus Brutal Howell. That's the fucked up guard.
Yeah.
We have James Cromwell himself. You got
That'll do, pig.
That'll do, pig. And Patricia Clarkson, which I think is always great. I think she's great in everything. And I just think that it's another one of those that is able to use its cast so well and really comes across as
But it's heavy.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, you're dealing with death row. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like it's a heavy movie.
Even post like the John Coffey stuff, just like you could argue like the epilogue of like Tom Hanks's character, who seems to like he's aging, but he's aging really slowly. He shouldn't be alive. He considers maybe it's punishment for it. You're just like, whoo, whoo. It doesn't.
That's tough shit.
It ain't the same as like the ending, the closing shot of Shawshank,
Yeah,
where they
right.
where the camera pulls out and they run to each other and embrace.
Right? It's like Shawshank, at least, like, that's what's funny here is that as Darabont, the reason why I think Stephen King lets him do so many of his movies is he understands, the same as King, how important an ending is.
Originally, that ending wasn't going to be in the film.
Yeah.
Because I know the novella ends with just like Morgan Freeman's character on the bus
Exactly.
to be like, I hope I can make it across the border.
Exactly.
And that's where it was going to end, but we actually
That's what
get
I
the
was going to
payoff.
say, is that this is important because Darabont usually adds an ending.
Yes.
You know, like, so he will, with Shawshank, he gives it its happy ending. With Green Mile, I can't remember if he gives it an ending, but
I don't know. I never read it.
remember,
I just
but-
knew that I just knew that the ending was like added to the movie. I'm not sure about Green Mile.
yeah, and The Mist, it's a definite
The Mist,
change.
yeah,
It's the
we'll
big
talk
change.
about that.
It's the big change.
That one I know.
That one I know. But Green Mile, first off, it's a great. I think I think it can't be understated how good of a period piece this is too.
Yeah.
You know, like that's one of my favorite parts about this movie is like Shawshank's a period piece, but like something about the Green Mile just feels like so much more in it.
I think part of the reason is that it has like this beautiful set design in the Green Mile.
Yes.
So it helps mix it up, and plus you're not primarily stuck in the prison. You do get to see like the other people's like houses, and you see like ranches and stuff like that. You get more view of like the cars and stuff like that. So you get more of the world.
More of the world. And I think that's why I
always think about how that film is like lit, and I like the beautiful like green floor and the bars. There's something about it. It's just very warm.
Yeah, it's so well done. I'm trying to think of who the cinematographer, David Tattersall, which is he was, oh my goodness, he's the cinematographer for 68 productions, but Netflix Death Note. All of Frank Darabont's films, it looks like. Even Walking Dead for that one episode. Speed Racer, that's wild in all these movies. And most importantly,
that's a contrast.
Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith.
And Attack of the Clones. What the fuck? Dude, that is wild. That's funny. What a great cinematographer there. And Phantom Menace. Man, give this guy the world there. Yeah, that's a great cinematographer right there. Even if Attack of the Clones looks like butt sometimes.
I doubt that's his fault.
That's not his fault.
George Lucas was like, we're gonna do it all in front of the screen. On the screen. We're gonna add that later. Jar Jar, you don't underestimate me. Jar Jar's the key to all this.
It is the key to all of that. I do love the Green Mile. It's definitely been quite a bit since I've watched it, but I want to
say I watched it maybe like 2-3 years ago. I think I went on just a slew where I had a friend who hadn't seen any of Frank Darabont's film, and we just kind of went through them. Yeah.
And I mean, I think Shawshank is my favorite on this list, obviously, but Green Mile and Majestic are real close.
I think that's like a good division between like best and favorite.
Yeah.
I would say Shawshank is the better film, but I find myself watching The Green Mile more.
Yeah. I feel that. It's also, I think, maybe more rewatchable.
I can say
because it's got
which is weird because that, but it's almost strange just because Shawshank is so much more optimistic.
Yeah.
So you would think it'd be an easier watch to just like revisit.
Yeah.
But then again, I like the heavy-handed nature of The Green Mile. I don't mind. I mean, it's kind of like when we were talking about like the best of last year.
Yeah.
And we brought up Marriage Story. Just like, despite how depressing this movie is, I could find myself rewatching this a lot.
Yeah, again.
Don't know why.
I don't know why. The next up on the list is a movie that's a lot of people wouldn't categorize as up there as much as the other two movies, but I think is just as good. The Majestic.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of Jim Carrey's Renaissance films. This is
a period in his career where he was trying to not necessarily abandon comedy, but veer away from that and try new things.
This was The Truman Show. This was
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
This was that time. And I think that's what this movie will be remembered for most, probably, is that Jim Carrey doing another fantastic job. That's really it here, is that Jim Carrey...
So he's what, a movie star or a movie producer?
Hollywood writer.
Hollywood writer who gets into a car accident, loses his memory, washes up on shore, befriends like these town folk, and like helps get this like dilapidated theater like back running.
Yeah. And it's it's as much as it's a story about a man losing his memory, it's a little bit about movie history, a little bit there, and a little bit of love about what cinema can do and how it can bring people together and hold a whole town together. But
it's a tough topic to tackle because when a director, especially a great director, tends to like veer into that property where they make a movie about loving movies. Sometimes it can be a little ham-fisted.
So
Hugo.
Well, I was gonna say Hugo's. It's ham-fisted. It's ham-fisted. I was gonna say the best one is Cinema Paradiso. I think that if we're talking about a movie that's just talking about love and movies, And it's very similar to this in the same way that somebody's fixing up a theater. And I do kind of think the Majestic was kind of like an Americanized version of it.
Yeah, I could argue that.
In a way of Cinema Paradiso. Cinema Paradiso just makes you... It fills your heart more than this movie does. I do like the Majestic, but I find myself comparing it to Cinema Paradiso all the time.
There are a lot of parallels, so it makes sense.
It's definitely, there's a lot of parallels, and I just...
It's all about that, like, a film about loving film and making films, and the idea of, like, what do you give up in pursuit of your art.
Exactly. But here it's more like what kind of life does a man want, you know, when he's actually presented with a choice, which is not often handed to people, but in this one,
The Majestic feels like a movie that could have come out like decades prior and still played exactly the same.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
probably.
it's got
like
it's
the
got
50s
that,
or 60s.
Yeah, exactly.
If it actually came out the time that it's supposed
what
to.
What does a man
based.
really want?
Yeah, exactly. It's not. It's kind
got
of a classic story.
It's got like that old timey feel to it. Even the dialogue is kind of written that way.
Yeah. And I think that's on purpose. I think that they are trying to. It's 1951 in the movie, you know, like, so it's supposed to, you know, sound different. But yes, I think that the pulpiness may have gone too far, you know, like a wee bit far. But I do think that this is another great movie, you know, like that's number one here, is that this is not Darabont missing. You know, like, this is Darabont again hitting a home run.
Yeah.
It's just not as much of a home run as, how can you? But Shawshank, you know? Like, the best movie of all time.
But it's not like it's a huge dip either, you know what I mean?
According to IMDb. Exactly. Exactly. That's the thing, is if any other director just randomly put out The Majestic, it would be like... Oh, hot damn. That's a good movie.
Yeah.
Who the hell is that guy? You know, like, but because you have Green Mile and Shawshank behind it, you're kind of like, it's good. It's good. But you know. And it really is good. The Majestic, because this isn't Liar Liar, you know, like this is, because Liar Liar is very much like leaning into Jim Carrey's everything, you know, like, and trying to be serious at the same time. The Majestic is very much like, you get parts of the Jim Carrey, but it's not.
It leans into it even less than I would say The Truman Show, because for as serious as a matter and like how deep that like premise is for The Truman Show,
fantastic.
It still has a lot of like Jim Carrey like kind of hamming it up because of like the ridiculous situation he's in.
Exactly.
It's not played completely straight like you could argue. Definitely Eternal Sunshine.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is, without any of it, you know, like, but it's still, he's still very good in this. He's still extremely talented in this, and it makes you want to watch it again because he's so good. Everyone else is classic, you know, is older movie actors that are being brought on. Martin Landau is back here. I think it's like, that's what I think is going on here, is that this is a movie about loving films, and then you bring on Martin Landau, Bob Labalan, Jeffrey Dooman, Hal Halbrook, you know, like Brent Besco, you know, like Rob Rifkin. Like, these are old movie guys, you know, James Whitmore, you know, like, these are guys that have been in movies for a while, and it's kind of like, you can tell Darabont's kind of like, oh, I like these people, like, I will work with them, you know, like, especially Martin Landau, I feel like, is just like being like, oh yes, I do love Martin Landau, let me, you know, like, let me bring him in.
I love him in Ed Wood.
Oh my god, he's so fucking good as Bela Lugosi. You're just like, yes. But I mean, he's also, you know, North by Northwest, you know, like, you know, like, it's damn good.
That's a career.
It's a career. That's a long ass career right there, you know, like, it's a damn long career. I mean, there's not much more to say about The Majestic. It is a good movie.
Yes.
I do like it. Good cast. But if you have to compare it to Cinema Paradiso, it kind of, or
the other
previous two
films,
films, it kind of falls out. So let's move on to the final one on this list, because we won't be talking about The Walking Dead or Mob City. I haven't seen Mob City, but of course I've seen The Walking Dead first episode, and of course I think he did a great job with that. Yeah. I think he translates the comics so fucking well.
That first episode is like beat for beat issue number 1,
and that's the reason why it's such a travesty that he's not on the rest of the show, because it's kind of like, oh my God, you could have had the exact comic, you know? Like, you could have had an amazing, like, adaptation. It's
like, there's a whole discussion to be had about, like, the pros and cons of changing things to make it work for a new medium.
Yeah.
But even just hearing the changes that they made as early as the first season, like, really bugged me. I was like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, you're just like,
I'm
no.
Good. You know, they're reprinting The Walking Dead in color now?
Ooh.
Like, they're going to re-release every single issue again, but in color this time.
Just make double the money?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, of course. Pay a colorist to make double the money? Yeah, okay.
Don't hate the hustle.
Don't hate the hustle. But I think my number one opinion about that Walking Dead episode is that episode is a masterpiece of television, and then they just were like, nope. And you're like, did you watch that fucking episode? Like, you know, like, how could you let that go? Like,
I think I might do a deep dive of The Walking Dead now that it's finally done. Now it's finally
you
done.
Can read it.
Yeah, it's not like the One Piece of American comics where you're just like, just finish so I can read and not feel like this will never end.
So now we must move on to The Mist. So The Mist. So this is one of those movies that I obsessed over as a kid, as a teen, because I read the book. I loved the book. Loved the book. It's a really interesting story because, I mean, you know the plot of the movie. The plot of the movie is that basically this mist comes out of nowhere.
Yes. And
there's things inside the mist, unknown. Sometimes it's tentacles, sometimes it's claws, sometimes it's fucked up things coming out of this mist. And everybody in this, it all starts with this at the shopping mart, and then they all move into the shopping mart and kind of try to live out this mist
to weather out the storm.
And really, this is kind of an adult version of Lord of the Flies, sort of, in a way. You know, like this is a very much or Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, it's not. I was about to bring up Night of the Living Dead.
It's
that archetypal story of just like
what do people do when it's all over?
Yeah, when people get desperate.
People get desperate.
Where they become just as dangerous as the actual threat they're trying to avoid.
And that's really what I think drew this to me as a kid, is that this is the ultimate, the point of a zombie movie is to always show you that even though in the face of death, we are our own worst enemies.
Yes, we are the monsters.
We're the monsters. But, like, that's what I loved about The Mist, that even in the face of real monsters being right there, we are still monstrous to each other. You know, like, even in a situation where it could work out, you know, like, we're still monstrous. And that's why I liked the book so much. Now, the reason why I love the movie to a point is that it follows the book so well. If we're talking about a Stephen King adaptation, it follows the book so well. And you're kind of just sitting there as a book reader like, God damn, this is good. Fuck, it's like reading the book with my mind, with my eyeballs. You know, like it's what everybody, a book reader, could ever love. You're like, holy shit, these actors are great. Is it Thomas Paine?
Thomas Jane.
Thomas Jane, sorry, because I had Punisher Paine. Again, it's another cast, a modern cast, but a very stacked modern cast, and. It's amazing to witness until the very fucking end. So the book, if you
got beef with the ending,
I got beef with the ending. So to sum up the movie, they're stuck inside the thing. Everything's fucked up. They decide to go out to the shopping mall next door. That doesn't work. They go back. They stay in the shopping mall for kind of like a couple days. The mist isn't going away. Nobody's coming to get them. they decide to leave in the book. And that's how they leave it. Them driving off into the mist, into the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen, but you know that they're safe away from the real monsters, the humans inside of the supermarket. You know, like it's such a good ending in that aspect that it keeps to the theme.
Yeah.
And then the movie's like, I'm going to make it so that way they go out to the mist, and then I'm going to decide it's hopeless, and I'm going to shoot them instead of waiting 20 fucking minutes for the mist to go away. And, you know, like, that's it. So you have this big dramatic ending where this father has to painstakingly, like, it's hurtful. I give this movie all the credit. That ending is pain. It's so painful. It's like watching this father having to do this is awful, and then all of a sudden the mist dissipating and all the military coming through right as that is happening is pain. It's so painful.
But here's the thing, that's why I like it.
Yeah, but then,
but I also don't have like the framework of like reading the book.
But that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. When I'm saying pain, I mean like they did such a good job. I feel that. You feel what he did. But it's stupid because it doesn't fit the fucking theme of the story. Why the fuck give up like that? Like it just obviously it feels like such a jump to me. And I know that's why you like it. I know that's why some people like it. They're like, wow, that's a bleak fucking ending. Wow, I really like a bleak ending. But it's also a bleak ending just to drive into the fucking mist. You know?
It's weird that an ending like that wasn't immediately just caught by the studio like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Because you often don't get endings that bleak. Because the studio, 9 times out of 10, is just like, no, you have to have at least some
sort
optimism.
of nice
ending. Do you think...
and that's the thing is,
do you think it would have played a little better if it just ended with the gunshots and not having the military come in?
Yes. That's absolutely my problem with
my
the
only
ending
problem with it is that it doesn't give you enough time to really let it sit in the moment, because the military shows up so quickly that it's almost comical.
It's almost comical. That's what I'm saying. That's my problem with the ending, is that you take this very serious ending where if you ended with those gunshots and then the mist kind of encroaches in, and then either one final gunshot or just the crying, beautiful. Beautiful.
Just the crying, or even just like him getting the gun, but not getting to the shots, like we're just
That would have been such an ending, but for them to come through the mist and it's solved by the military is so stupid. And I get it. It's painful, but it also is cringy and makes me laugh.
I'm just thinking about, I'm doing that like almost like fanficky stuff in my brain, where I'm thinking about like how I would do it.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about like a camera pull out with a silhouette of the car shrouded in the mist until it becomes completely enveloped. You hear a gunshot and you cut the black.
Exactly. And they have multiple endings on the DVDs. If you watch the DVDs, they have multiple endings, so they knew this was weird.
That's a good thing to bring up, is just the home media for the mist in general. The black and white version.
Yes. So that's so I'm infuriated about the ending, but in reality, I love this movie. I really do. I think the effects are cool.
So you would argue that while you have...
the story is really good. I love the horror elements.
So while you would argue that like the film's ending is ultimately contradictory, especially when compared to the source material, you would say it does not ruin the film.
No. It ruins it for me, but it wouldn't ruin it for anybody else.
Okay.
You know, like that's the thing, is if you weren't a book reader, you may have not been ruined by it. You may have just been like, oh man, what a brutal ending, you would have been like. But for me, it feels like you just
even I have my issues with it. I would say it undermines the film, but I wouldn't say it ruins it.
See, for me, it doesn't... It undermines it so much that it bothers me.
It couldn't have ruined it that much if you watched it a million times.
I have, though. That's the thing, is that it's one of those movies that I just kept watching. Because I thought that they did such a good job of this isolate... It's a zombie film without being the zombie film in a so much better way. In an age where this movie came out and he literally did The Walking Dead afterwards, you know, like this is the height of the zombie media craze at the time. And they were able to deliver a better zombie movie that didn't have zombies in it, you know, like that same environmental hopelessness, because that's what zombie films are really about, other than humans are the real enemy, is that are constantly moving in, and it's that threat of you can't do anything about it. They're going to get you. Zombies are a great way to add tension to death to characters you do not care about.
What do you think about the black and white version?
I think it's... Go
I
ahead.
would probably say I prefer it.
Yeah?
And I know Darabont's original intention was to make it black and white, and the studio was like, no.
No.
And it kind of plays, because to be honest, even for back then, like the effects for like the tentacles and stuff like that coming through the moose, they're a little dated, and they're even more dated now. It's sort of, it almost looks like B-movie-ish.
Yeah.
And I think it plays better.
Important. That's what they're going for.
Yeah.
Though. Like, because it almost, and that's what I always loved about the book and the movie too, is that that's kind of the scary part about The Mist, is that the stuff coming out of it is so B-movie, you know, like it's a tentacle. It's like a fucking, like it's always something that you would see in like a Stephen King B-movie, you know, it's a Stephen King novel. So you're kind of like, what the fuck is that mist? You know,
I just think it plays better in black and white. It fits more. You can tell that was like the original intention.
Yeah.
It's not the sort of like gimmicky thing where...
And I think it's because of the environment.
Yeah.
You know, like they could do so much.
And it's a matter of intention. It's not like the gimmicky thing like with Logan Noir or like...
Yeah.
It's like, or like Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, but
those really good. Play in black and white but that wasn't the original intention. Yeah. It does work.
So I think we have to talk about the cast here, because I was saying, earlier he's choosing like these stacked casts, but they're full of like classic actors. This one, I feel like he brought in the new age class of actors here. You know, like we got Thomas Jane as the main, Marissa Gay Harden as Mrs. Carmody, which is just, she's evil. You know, like she's she's Miss Nurse Ratched evil. You know? And that's why I love this book and movie, is that they're able to make her like Ratchet, like, you know, like make her Nurse Ratched evil.
Yeah.
Like, and that's worse somehow than the Mist, you know, like, which is so.
Yeah, it's just
good.
That like it's that like culty, mallistic, like assuredness, if you could describe it that way. It's just,
oh man,
it's just so icky.
It's so good. Then you have Laurie Holden, Andre Braugher, Toby Jones. So good. Toby Jones. You know, like give me any movie with Toby Jones in it. You know, like I will say that always. I love Toby Jones and everything. When they were like, yeah, he's gonna be Zola, I was like, yes, please. I was like, yes, that sounds very good.
I remember, because I've been going through like the Doctor Who rewatch with a buddy. He was so mad when I told him that the Dream Lord doesn't show up in another episode. He's like, what? The Dream Lord is so cool.
And you also, there's either further down the list, you have Sam Whitmore, where's one of his first roles is in The Mist. He's freaking
Darth
Maul. You know, like, and you're just like, yeah, Darth Maul, fuck yeah. You know, like,
to clarify, specifically like Clone Wars / Rebels Darth Maul.
Yes.
And by extension, Solo. Because you have to say like Ray Park for Phantom Menace with Peter Serafinowicz voicing him.
Very true. Very true. Very true. I feel that. So I definitely have problems with this movie, but I do think it's a frightening movie. It's very well written. For most part, and then and the cast is so good, you know, like, and they're acting their asses off in what many other people would have considered a B movie, you know, like, and they just treat it as so much more, and it's able to be elevated.
What a streak of just like the Stephen King adaptations,
right?
And also they just turn into films that are so good on their own that it doesn't even matter if you know the source material or not. So again, I ask, Frank Darabont, where did you go?
Is he just waiting for Stephen King to do something else? Do you think he's just like,
I don't know.
He's just like, hey, what's the next?
He's waiting for that.
King?
He's waiting for that one book that like really resonates him, so he can execute it. I guess, I don't know.
I love that when you go into IMDb's for Stephen King, there's 340 credits for writer. You're just like, yeah, no fucking duh. You're just like, yeah, and in the amount of pictures that are not even that are in production and not like done is astounding. You just keep scrolling and then you're like, it's not here yet. You're like
We'll give it a bit.
You're like, where does it end? But I mean, there's so much Stephen King stuff coming out that you're just kind of like, it might be time for Frank Darabont to come out
to just step up
like,
out of the TV world. Give me a good movie again.
Yeah, because I know they're doing Firestarter right now, which is one of my favorite Stephen King books. They're doing Talisman. They're doing Tommyknockers. Stuff for the Little Children, and they also are doing a Carrie TV show, which I think is a terrible idea. You're just like, no, why a TV show? Unless it's like a limited series,
miniseries,
like exactly as I said, told from like perspectives of different people.
That
like,
and nothing like any of the other miniseries based on Stephen King's work.
Yeah.
Except arguably, isn't Salem's Lot a miniseries?
It is.
Yeah, except that one.
Except that one
because it doesn't hold up.
No, it doesn't.
And like literally none of the other ones are good.
None of the other ones.
Although if you want to have a great laugh, you can watch The Langoliers.
Yeah, right. You're just like,
yep.
Sorry, and he's got. I mean, Stephen King was selling Netflix there for a bit, and he was hitting some gold. You know, like we had In the Tall Grass. Castle Rock's doing well right now.
You still haven't seen Dr. Sleep.
I still haven't seen Dr. Sleep. I need to see that.
It's good. I like it.
Yeah. Pet Sematary was not good.
No, it was not.
No, that was not. Sorry, I'm just going through fucking Stephen King stuff right now.
We'll be here all day.
We'll be here all day. But basically, yeah, we have to bow down to Frank Darabont. Mm-hmm. He may have peaked a little bit at Shawshank Redemption, but I have tons of faith in the man. Like, yeah. I think that's only because that's one of Stephen King's strongest. And
even beyond like Stephen King adaptations, I would just love to see the man make a film again.
Exactly. It's like, obviously he did such a good job with Robert Kirkland's stuff in Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. You know he can do other adaptions. It's just give me it more. He's got his next project is just something called Honor, which is coming off a screenplay from Stanley Kubrick. Which I've heard about this project many times before.
One of those things where like you never got around to making.
Yeah, Confederate Colonel John Singleton Mosby, known as the Grey Ghost, and his cavalry, the Mosby Riders, take on General George Armstrong Custer's larger Union forces during the United States Civil War.
Okay.
So it's kind of a. And I'm sure that's why it's being delayed. It's a Confederate story.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's why it's being delayed right now.
You say Grey Ghost. There's only one thing I think of.
Yeah, right.
The Grey Ghost.
But I love Frank Darabont. I want more. You know, like the guy's also a great writer. If this thing would load, which it's not, you have we were saying The Nightmare on Elm Street. And he's got 23 other titles on here. Here it is. He wrote an episode of The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones, so that's important. Mm-hmm. Oh, several episodes of it. Wow. One of the main writers of The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. Something called Black Cat Run. He did write that terrible Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Which he is brought up as like the movie at hand, like doesn't resemble like what he wrote at all.
He did write one of my favorite horror remakes of all time, The Blob. Mm-hmm. And I will give him all the credit for that. The Blob, 1988, The Blob is so fucking good.
Yeah, it's so fun.
It shouldn't, like, okay, first off, the first movie shouldn't be good. The Blob is a cheese fest, but it's so much fun. I love The Blob. And then for them to be like, what if we did a bloody, disgusting version of this cheery sci-fi flick from the 50s and 60s? And you're like, okay. And The Blob is just that, and it's so good. And he also has The Fly 2 on here as one of his movies.
Yeah.
Which, that one's not as good.
It's not great.
He is credited here as uncredited additional writing on Godzilla 2014. So, you know,
I wouldn't surprise me. Godzilla 2014 had a lot of hands thrown at it. Like I know, like David S. Goyer also worked on like a draft of it one time. Like that changed hands a lot.
So you kind of, it's like I'm sure that they give him that credit there just because there's some parts they probably kept.
Exactly.
Like they're probably like, which I wouldn't be surprised if the whole beginning is Darabont, like if that whole like Bryan Cranston dying at the beginning of
that seems about right.
That sounds Darabont. It sounds like something he would do, like, so I don't know. But I can't know that for sure. But the man's a great writer, so I hope that his next project, which he's a writer on and director on, Honor, does get made at some point. But thank you guys. I'm pretty sure that's pretty much it for Frank Darabont. We covered it. If you have anything else you think we missed on Frank Darabont or something we should check out, like maybe we should have seen those TV movies, which I doubt we had to. But please let us know, or if Mob City's any good. I don't think it is, but
someone's going to be like, how dare you insult Mary Shelley's Frankenstein?
Right? How dare you?
It's the closest thing I'll get to a damn like actual faithful adaptation of that novel.
And you're like,
the only thing worth about that flick is that like Robert De Niro is surprisingly
he's
really good as
really
the Frankenstein's monster, and it's like actually kind of faithful to the book. That's about it.
That's about it. But thank you guys for tuning in. Please check out all our other episodes on everywhere you listen to podcasts, but also where we write our articles, galaxygeek.com. You can find Galaxy Geek is also where we post on Facebook.
Yep.
You can also find the Warp Shelf Facebook page on there too. But you can also find us on Twitter if you want to talk to us directly. I'm Yep Frank.
I'm Mod Karika.
And if we want to talk anything Darabont, or if you actually really loved the ending of The Mist and you were like, Frank, what the fuck, bro? It's actually really good. Tweet at me. I would love to talk about it.
Yeah, talk.
Maybe yell back on Twitter, but, or send you a GIF or two.
There's no talking on Twitter.
An exchange.
It's just condensed yelling. With that short-ass character. Just shouting,
yelling.
Condensed shouting.
But
it's like a jar of kimchi.
Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. And if you have any other suggestions for the works of episodes, we would love to hear them. We're going down, if you didn't already catch on, we're trying to do some of our favorite directors, but also we want to make sure we've seen every bit of their bit. That is the major requirement. So if you have a suggestion for us, please drop it down, and then we'll have some homework to do, because we'll probably have some movies to watch, which I'm down for all the time.
To watch more movies anyway.
I'm down for watching more movies. All right, thank you guys, and hope you have a great week.
See ya.